before I start talking, if you are new to the channel and you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing as it is free and you can always unsubscribe later. Not my choice, but if you did, I would really much appreciate it. So, you've decided you want to play Mage. Honestly, the only reason I became a Mage, and many others did, was because it was stupid overpowered, and someone carried me through floor 1 when I used Revenant armor to play tank. But besides that, you've probably already watched on how to prep to play Mage. If you haven't, well, just use the timestamps in the description to skip where you need to be. Let's start off with the basics and explain what Mage is. Mage is a class based on ability damage and your intelligence. So to get decent damage, you need a massive brain. Actually, Mage requires the least amount of brain cells to pull it off, as all you do is hold mouse 2 and click mouse 1. But that's beside the point. Now let's start out with the obvious things you will need. First, I'm going to talk about Talisman Reforges. Armor and weapons will come later in the video. Again, timestamps are in the description. Now for talismans. These are all very straightforward. If you're a pure mage, in other words, you use your abilities, Bazaar is the best Talisman Reforge for that. But if you are a beam mage, Demonic would be a better reforge for you, but either reforge works. The second part is the pet. Mage's pets have two options. First, the sheep pet. This pet gives you 100 intelligence, makes your abilities deal 50% more damage to enemies, and also buffs your intelligence by 25% while in dungeons, and finally makes your abilities cost 20% less mana than normal. Oh, and also, since the enchanting update came out a bit ago, it also gives you more ability damage now, and I don't know if anything was removed. The second pet is the Guardian pet. This pet also gives 100 more intelligence, but gives 50 defense. Its abilities let you zap enemies, damaging them by 20 times by your intelligence every 3 seconds, and regenerates your mana 30% faster when near or in water. It also has a useless ability inside dungeons. It gives more enchanting XP, but that perk really doesn't matter unless if you're, going for enchanting XP. So putting these side by side, you can clearly see that Sheep Pet is going to be 100% better due to giving more intelligence and reducing the cost of mana used. So Sheep Pet is the pet I recommend you use more. I'm not sure, but if you don't have enough money to drop on a level 100 legendary sheep, you can either get a level 100 legendary guardian for cheaper, or just get a level 100 epic sheep and upgrade it by giving it to cat, but I'm not sure if guardian is cheaper than sheep. Next is going to be your weapon. Now there is a pretty decent amount of weapons for mage to use. I'll start with a cheap budget and go up from there. So to start, if you're the lowest of the low, you can get a Dreadlord Sword for pretty cheap in the auction house now. It usually is already enchanted for you, so you don't have to worry about that. This weapon deals an okay amount of damage, but will not cut it for floor 3 and could work for floor 2. I skipped this weapon because I already had enough to afford a different weapon that I'm going to talk about later in the video. This next one is about 2 million coins when max enchant, excluding an important enchant for ability items that I will also talk about later. This weapon is the Bonzo Staff. This weapon's ability costs 100 mana without any mana saving abilities, so it's hard to spam early dungeons without enough mana, but this weapon can also be 5-star to give you a large amount of intelligence. You can do this by getting Undead Essence and then upgrading it at Malik in the dungeon hub. This weapon shoots balloons that have a small blast radius and deal good damage with enough mana. Be sure to keep in mind that these are main weapons, and I will talk about secondary weapons / tools after these next two. Anyways, the third weapon that I currently use is the Frozen Scythe. This weapon has an ability that shoots ice bolts that pierce every enemy it hits. It also slows down the enemies that you hit, making it easy to clear out mini-bosses and rooms. This ability only costs 50 mana with no cooldown, making it very spammable and efficient. The final weapon is a pretty expensive weapon, costing almost 7 million coins to buy clean, and this weapon is called the Sceptre. This is more later mid-game mage weapon when you're transferring more into late game. This weapon costs a whopping 250 mana with no mana save abilities, and choose your intelligence when you use the ability. This weapon shoots a bat that will go in the direction you are looking and has a giant blast radius that deals massive damage to all mobs in the explosion. Now for the secondary weapons and tools. There are 3 things we want to look at. First, the tools. This weapon is mostly used for a tool as a mage. It is the aspect of the end. This is a very good mobility tool, making you able to get places faster and things you can't reach with grappling hooks. The secondary weapons though cost some grinding. For the first one, you need Zombie Slayer level 5, which can be easily grinded with tier 3s, but make sure you can deal with them before grinding for them. This secondary weapon isn't needed but is extremely overpowered. Once you unlock Zombie Slayer 5, you can craft a Voodoo Doll, or you can buy it for pretty cheap. This weapon deals a bunch of damage over time and stacks its damage, meaning you can get a bunch of damage by using this every time its cooldown is finished. The last weapon is the Ink Wand. This weapon is recommended for large amounts of damage when needed, though requires a bit of aiming to hit. But when you hit an enemy, it can deal upwards of 400,000 damage. The next category is your armor. This is probably the most important part, as it is very important to have a set that provides good intelligence and a decent amount of defense. Now, if you wanted to deal good damage, crystal armor would be good, but due to its very low defense, it is practically useless. The armor you want is Wise Dragon armor. This armor has an ability that saves 2/3 of your mana, making all of your abilities cost barely any mana. This set gives you a good amount of defense, allowing you to take a lot of hits before dying. This set also gives you a bunch of intelligence, allowing you to deal more damage to mobs. Now the only problem with this set is the intelligence. Even though it gives a lot of intelligence, it takes Catacombs level 28 to even start it, making it terrible for floors above floor 1 and floor 2. If you have Wise armor and are really far behind Catacombs 15, I would suggest getting a floor 3 carry and a floor 4 carry to get some Catacombs XP to get a decent level Catacombs. This will allow you to use a fuse set, which means you can use many different types of armor pieces combined. The specific fuse set we are looking for is Dark Goggles and 3/4 Super Heavy armor. This set will allow you to tank many hits before dying without including any lifesteal. This set should allow you to move on to floor 3 and floor 4 and pass on floor 1 and floor 2. I personally skipped floor 3 after getting this armor because the boss doesn't really give you any profit these days, and I went straight for floor 4. You were also able to replace your Dark Goggles with Shadow Goggles later on after Catacombs level 20. Now for the next important part, armor and weapon reforges. Honestly, another very straightforward reforge for the weapons. The reforge you want to apply to your ability weapons is the Heroic Reforge, giving the most intelligence out of all the reforges in the game for your weapons. For armor, there's a bit of a mix. For a more budget option, you can apply Wise to your armor, but if you have more money, I would recommend getting the Loving Reforge on your chestplate from the Red Scarf, and Necrotic on all of your other pieces of armor, using the Necromancer's Bruise. You can do full Necrotic, but putting Loving on your chestplate will give you more ability damage than full Necrotic. Finally, that's over. If I did forget anything that is important, you can ask in the comments below. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if this helped you, consider subscribing. Anyways, my name is Poseidon, and I will see you all next time.